Hi there. All right, a few days ago, I made a video talking about one of Aaron Gibson's songs from his latest album that we worked on together, and I kind of deconstructed a little bit of the string arrangements that happened there. This time, I'm doing a similar video, but actually talking about more of the mixing side of things. Today happens to be my birthday, so I'm going to talk about one of the things that I love the most, which is automation. Which also I think is something that sometimes gets a little bit overlooked when talking about mixing. I mean, sure, processing and balancing things is really important, but I feel like once the ballpark of the sounds, the tones, textures, and the levels are in place, many times some mixes lack a little bit of a dynamic feel to them, a little bit of a flow, emotion. And I think, at least in my experience, automation has helped me a lot to give some things a little bit of a sense of motion and forward pushing, to keep things interesting throughout the song. And sometimes to create a little bit of an illusion that some things are not moving, although by means of automation things are moving inside. So, okay, let's check out a couple of the things that are happening here regarding this mix. This is a song called See the World, which is the first track in the record. And like the majority of the songs is bass, electric bass, vocals, and a string quartet. So let me show you what this sounds like, just as it was mixed in the record. No mastering, but as the final mix sounded like, with nothing muted in it. So I'm gonna play from the top up to the end of verse 1. Check it out.
Our hearts don't pump inherited blood. Who knows, there may be joy across the sea. And let's set out, let's count the stars about. For darkness falls, our feet can run. Till our pockets are turned out. And I want to settle down. An apartment in a town, away from streams and falling trees. We can go eat Japanese. And I want you to fly a plane. We'll ascend on through the rain.
Okay, and then it goes into this section I called A, which is kind of like an after verse before. It's like a pre-chorus, basically. But anyway, so let's break it down. I'm gonna talk about the vocals first, then a little bit about the bass, and later the strings. So what things are being automated? So any of these lines and these envelopes, these are the automation. Envelope, I think that word comes from a different software. But these are the automation lanes in Pro Tools. And so what you can see here is that I have a lane for the volume, so the output level of the track, this guy right here, will move over time. Then spring is a send that I have going into a spring verb, which I am muting and unmuting for different sections. And then finally, I have, well, there's more things that are being automated actually. If we look at the little plate, although it's not being used. So let me see one more thing here. Little plate, mute. No, forget about that one. Oops, boom, disregard. I guess I never used that. So basically we have level, that's easy, right? The fader will move. Oh, that's cool. There we go.
Our hearts don't pump inherited blood. Who knows, there may be joy.
You hear that long reverb tail. That comes from that spring verb, which is the AKG spring. It's a UA emulation, but let's not worry about what it is, but what we're doing with it, which is at a certain level. Here's the level for it. and then at some point it gets muted. Why? Because the whole texture of the song gets drier. So I wanted to have a very lush and really, full on sounding, a long tail on the vocals, while the strings were playing more of a sustained type texture with more, let's say, more flesh into that sound, right? So then the vocal would blend with the strings. Although you can't quite hear that reverb, or it's not so obvious while the strings are playing, it's there and it's making so the vocals really gel with those strings. Okay. But at some point, the strings start to play a more choppy kind of rhythm. It's more staccato, and I don't want that tail to wash over, so I mute it directly. So I'm relying on a different reverb at that point. So check it out.
Off we can run till our pockets are turned out.
There's a second verb that I'm using, and maybe there's a delay as well, but the main long tail is gone. Check out that in context.
Off we can run till our pockets are turned out. And I want to settle down.
So there's a little bit of a contrast between a broader sound and more of like suddenly Aaron is singing to you right here. So that's what we're trying to do at that point. And later on in the song, what I'm doing, I'm not only, well, I not only have the reverb on only, but I'm also changing the level of the reverb. And I'm playing with the phrases that he's doing and what the strings are doing. And I mean, it's really intuitive at this point. I'm just kind of performing with the faders. You can't see, but I have two artist mix controllers here. And I may even close my eyes, to tell you the truth, because I don't want anything. I just want to hear. I want to know what the final result of the automation changes will be. So I'm playing with level, and really likely I was with two different faders, one for level of the voice and the other one for the actual level of the reverb. And check out this section.
Until our pockets are turned out. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, and so, whoa, whoa, what's stopping us, stopping us, and so. Whoa, whoa, what's stopping us?
So this is the most complex part in a way, where it starts to build from nothing, just from the bass to then the vocals and then one string and then a second string line comes in. So it's this whole interplay of different voices. So I wanted to be more playful even with the reverb and just create more motion and just basically match the intention of the strings with the vocals and kind of where the strings felt they were in the room. So that's why I show you here the level and the reverb changing at the same time.
Oh, whoa, whoa, what's stopping us, stopping us, it's so.
The level changes on the vocal are really, really subtle. Sometimes they're not, because I needed more actual level, but mostly is not only how loud it sounds, but how close or how far it feels. It's like you are letting the vocals sink into the strings or come out and kind of being closer in the room with you. Something cool to say here, or not cool, but something that I shouldn't leave out, is that this level here, the vocals are not going to my mix bus directly, but are actually going to this other bus aux track that has, I call it vocals master, which has a compressor in it. It has a couple things in here, but the most important thing for our purposes is that it has this compressor, this Fairchild, which helps me kind of hold the vocals as I push level into the compressor. Of course, it compresses more because the threshold is more level coming into it. And this type of compressor also will color the signal. The more you push it, the more color you get out of it, the more harmonics it creates. So the more mushy, the more buttery the signal gets. It's like, imagine a stream of water going through a river, and if the stream is really big and it goes really fast, so let's say this more level, it will carry more minerals and rocks and dirt with it, so it will be more complex. If the water is going very slowly, it likely won't wash away so many things from the bottom. The bottom of the river being the compressor in this case, right? So it's like the more I push the compressor with the vocals, the more grit, the more sound, the more vibe I get from it. So I'm also playing with that. I'm having that in mind, and you know, you have to tinker with it until you have a good level, because if you compress too much, then it starts to feel kind of clutter and clamp down. You don't want that, unless you do want it. Not in this case. I wanted to keep it more natural sounding, but I did want this interaction in between compression, level, and where the vocal would sit. So that's basically what I'm doing. Level and reverb. And some things with bigger changes, but most of them quite subtle, I would say. Cool. Let's go to the bass now. I don't have much to say about automation on the bass, although I did, in this section that has more of a lyrical feel, I did do a bunch of automation on the level. This is the level lane. Check it out.
Whoa, 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 oh.
I'm just trying to bring out some of those little those little licks, and just ducking the bass a little bit when the voice comes in. There's also the strings, so there's 3 elements that are being automated. I don't think I was going with, but I may have been doing 3 faders, 1 to control the vocals, 1 for the bass, and 1 for the master for the strings. At some point, I may have done that, but I usually move with 2 at the same time. I do like to automate things in pairs. I think it's really organic in the sense that you're not just moving something against something that's not moving, but you are accommodating for both elements. But it takes a little bit of practice to do it. Okay, the level is a little more standard of a thing to do. The second thing that I did with the bass was automating this chorus chain that I have here, which is just for fun. A little spreader, and then into distortion. I'm just sending some of the lower frequencies to the center. And then I'm just taming some stuff that was getting a little muddy. It's okay, we don't need to get into processing right now. It's not the main point. Just think of this as a chorus with distortion. So that's part of the sound of the bass. The bass sounds like this. Yeah, it's my birthday. Okay, so if I were to mute the bass, not the bass, the chorus and the bass, it would sound like this. Chorus on. Subtle, but a little bit of a widening effect and a little more texture to the bass. So, at some point, I felt like these tails of the bass didn't have enough texture to me. I'm gonna mute the chorus. Check it out. We hear most of the fundamental and a few harmonics, but there's not all that higher upper range complexity in it. So what I did in that tail is automated down the level, the output, while at the same time I'm automating up and bringing up the chorus. So the tail has more complexity because the chorus adds more of the detuning effect, right? So you will get more of a wobble. So this is the chorus level plus the actual output level. Check it out. Now. Without it, without the chorus. Subtle, but there is, and it makes a difference to me. So little things like that. Then for the rest of the song, most of the song I'm keeping the bass more still because it's more even in the playing, not like in this section that's more lyrical, more melodic, let's say. So I'm keeping the bass as a reference, and then I'm changing. This takes me to the next instrument, which are the strings. I think of the strings, although it's 4 instruments, it's like an organism. So I treat it like a drum set, which has different parts. The string quartet has, 2 violins, viola and cello, but the whole of the strings, the whole thing creates a texture. So I'm happy to treat it as a single unity. All right, so very quickly, we have the microphones for the strings right here, the different tracks, and those are being gathered here on my strings bus. So this track carries all the signal coming from these 3 different tracks. I'm actually not using this. I had a Bloomline option, but I didn't use it, so let's get rid of it. Make things less confused. So we have this line right here is the level of the individual parts, closer microphones versus room microphones, which are more far away. And sometimes I like to play with the level of those to make things move a little more, create more space, make them feel more far away, closer together. The strings are doing this to you. They're moving and playing. But most of the times, I'm just taking the big fader of the strings and moving around. So it's not something that we want to hear per se, but in the balancing act, this is the time where it's for making an illusion, as things are not moving, although I'm moving the level.
Our hearts don't pump inherited blood. Who knows, there may be joy across the sea. And let's set out, let's count the stars.
Let me play you that without the automation. So I'm gonna come here, let's be fair, where we start right here, and then I'm gonna turn automation off. So it's not gonna change level, it's just gonna play all the parts, but with no level change in the strings.
Our hearts don't pump inherited blood. Who knows, there may be joy across the sea. And let's set out, let's count the stars about.
To me, at this point, it gets a little loud.
And let's set out, let's count the stars about.
Maybe not, but maybe yes. Let's hear it again with the automation.
Our hearts don't pump inherited blood. Who knows, there may be joy across the sea. And let's set out, let's count the stars about. For
it's really subtle. I'm not moving, I'm moving what? Half a dB. It's really, really subtle right there. But let's find another spot. Let's find, for instance, here, with automation.
Let's go see the world. Let's go see the whole world. Let's go see the world. Let's go see the world.
Without automation, again, this is level.
Let's go see the world. Let's go see the whole world. Let's go see the world. Let's go see the world.
So the trick here is that the string quartet is a very dynamic ensemble. Naturally, look at the waveforms. So don't expect to not hear a dynamic or level change. Rather, we'll hear a different type of change because we are recording things with microphones and we are recording the bass, the eye, and we're not just all playing in a room and it's a live concert. That's why we need to make some accommodations for the level in the mixing so all things gel well together. So they already have a dynamic contour naturally, what we're doing is kind of shaping and massaging a little bit, keeping its identity, how it was played, but just with a little bit of a balancing act in between the other elements. So it's a really subtle difference, but it makes in the final product, it makes for a whole ensemble cohesiveness, ensemble by the strings plus the bass and the vocals. Never forget listening to it through speakers, and that's the challenge. All right, so that is pretty much all the automation I'm doing, really. Let's see. Okay, no, there's something else I lied. The strings, I am doing something similar than I did with the vocals up here, where I made everything a little drier for that more staccato section. The strings are playing a technique called colenio, which is hitting with the back of the bow, not with the actual strings in the bow, which is usually, I think it's horse hairs. But with the back of the bow, with the wooden part, they just hit the strings and they get more of a percussive sound. And I had a lot of reverb. There's actually some delays and things that are in there that they're underneath the texture of the strings. But let me solo the strings so you can hear how they sound when they're playing legato. That's all the tail. You see that there's some delay going on. You don't hear quite that much in the mix because everything is playing. But when I saw them, you can tell. And now let's hear how the staccato section sounds in contrast. There's still a bit of a delay, but it's drier. Let me play it from before, and I'm gonna take automation off. Let's do it again. Just much more decay, much more delay, much more reverb. So again, little changes that make so each section has like an identity of its own, or like a different space, let's say. More of a different space, I would say. So we covered the level, the strings, some of the reverb. Here's another little tail with where I wanted more of a resonance, so I added a little more of the send to the delays. We'll see the world. I just wanted more tail than I had, so that's what I opened up the delay a little bit more. The last thing that is I find cool is automating. Check it out here. I have the closed microphones, which sound like this. And the room microphones, which sound like this. So for most of the parts, I have them balanced to a combination that I like. But for this section, let's see what's going on overall in the song. This is what was happening. So I can see that you'll wander with me. So basically what I'm doing is I'm bringing up the room microphones as the closed microphones are going down in level. So it's becoming a little roomier and maybe a little softer, less transienty, just a little warmer in a way, if I may. Just little things, just to accommodate for the overall picture. So I can see that you'll wander with me. Let's go see. All right, well, we could stay here talking about this stuff for hours, but I don't want to bother you guys. So that's all. Thank you.